Welcome to the Wild Physio podcast with your host, Andrew Wild. Today, I have Michael Messina on, just like the ice cream. Michael is currently the head pathways physio at the West Tigers. He has previously worked at the Cronulla Sharks, New South Wales Waratahs, and Australian Sevens Academy programs. Michael graduated from ACU in 2016 with a Bachelor of Physio and is currently studying a Masters of Sports Physio at La Trobe University. He has recently opened his own clinic, Elite Edge Physio in Glenwood Hills. Is that right?
Glenwood Hills, close enough.
Glenwood Hills, yep. And we're currently doing it right now over Zoom, and I can see the clinic's looking great. Welcome, Michael.
Thanks, Andrew. It's a pleasure to be here. First podcast, so I'm excited.
Let's dive into it, mate. So got some yes, no, maybe questions to start with. And a lot of the stuff we wanted to talk about today was Michael's transition into the world of pro sport. So here are the questions. So yes, no, maybe, please. Do you need 2 to 3 years of work as a physio before starting a Masters of Sports Physio?
Yes.
Have you sacrificed a lot to work in sports physio?
Absolutely, yes.
Have you learned a lot from strength and conditioning coaches while in pro sport?
Yes.
Do you have any regrets about getting into pro sport?
No.
Is it nearly impossible to play organized sport yourself if you work in sports physio jobs?
Personally, yes.
Should a sports physio also have ties to a private practice?
Yes.
Did you set up a private practice so you didn't have to rely completely on sports jobs for income?
Yes.
Do you wish you had more influence on the S&C side of rehab in pro sport?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I would say no, because I've been lucky enough to be surrounded by S&Cs that do an awesome job, and I've been very lucky.
Gotcha. Will you work in sports jobs forever?
No.
Well done, mate. We are done.
Sweet.
Well done. What do you think?
Yeah, good. That was perfect questions. I can answer all of those. I can talk about all of those.
Well done. Now, one of the first ones that we did was how long before starting a master's?
Yeah.
Now, you said you need roughly about that 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
Why?
I think if you go straight out of your bachelor's, or if you do like a master's, like a graduate master's program at Sydney or UTS, I feel the first 2 or 3 years of your practice as a physio, you should just focus on being a good physio, learning how to listen to people. We're talking private practice. We're talking, musculoskeletal in the community.
Yeah.
You need to be a good person before you're a great physio. And I feel you need to learn how to really communicate and get what your patient wants out of a session or out of their rehab. Before you do any of that, there's no point in going and looking at a master's. I waited 5 years because I feel like I didn't fully I wasn't ready to really hone in on what I wanted to do. And I didn't think I was going to get the most out of a sports physio masters if I had done it any earlier. I felt like I had a lot to learn from a soft skills point of view. And obviously you would take a lot out of and I've taken a lot out of my master's program, what I've done so far. But I feel you probably need to be a good physio for your general pop and for the clinic and learn how to get the most out of a patient's rehab before you even think about progressing to kind of down that master's level. But that's my opinion.
And if you weren't working in pro sport or wanted to continue to work in pro sport, would you have done your sports masters?
Yeah, I still would have. I think I still would have because I like the challenge. Uni was hard for me. I didn't get through uni very easily. I felt like I really struggled that first 2 years at university, that transition out of high school, because between you and me, high school was pretty cruisy. And then I never forget the first kind of 3 months of uni. I was like, oh, this is easy. I'm going to the bar. I can study when I want. And then I had my first anatomy exam. And I was like, holy shit, this is hard. So I struggled with the transition. So I feel like I always set out myself as I need to challenge myself educationally. So I wanted to do a master's. So I think regardless if I was in pro sport or not, I still would have done it. And I've always had an interest in sport. So even if I wasn't working in pro sport, I think in a community setting, I would still be doing a lot of like sports work anyway. So I still think it would still be beneficial to me regardless of what I did.
Yeah, and that leads into the question of sacrifices to get into pro sport. And you said there's a lot of things that you've sacrificed. What are some of the things you've sacrificed?
Time, money, sleep. Yeah, look, I think everything's about, I always say it's risk versus reward. And I say this to my patients all the time. It's like, what's the risk of doing something and what's the reward? So when I started in pro, when I had an epiphany, I was kind of working in a clinic for the first 12 months and I wasn't really thinking about sport. And I went and did my sports level 1 with the APA. And I just had this like holy hell epiphany moment. I was like, I need to do sport. This is what I want to do this. And I had that, I kind of got that, 12-month itch at the end of my first new grad year. I was like, oh, is this what I want to do? Like, I'm not really enjoying it. I was getting really lethargic. I was seeing 40 a week in the clinic, which was good. Like I was doing well. But then I was like, no, I need to do sport. I need to get out onto the field or into the gym. And I needed just something to break up my week. And so I ended up starting volunteering for junior country rugby, like doing it for free. I would travel to, Bathurst, Canberra every second weekend, just driving down in my dad's old ute, chuck all the gear in the back, and I would just go and do it. And I did that for 2 years. And, I was single at the time, so it was okay. I could afford to do it. Like I wasn't really sacrificing any times. And then I caught a break and I went on with the Waratahs. I went to Gen Blue up in the Gold Coast, did their under 16s tournament up there. And then from there, I kind of got the job at Cronulla. And that was awesome. It was an amazing experience. And I would never take it back because I learned so much working there. But it cost me a lot. It cost me a lot of money, like in terms of, petrol driving. I live out in Camden, which is in the southwest, driving to Cronulla 3-4 times a week. I lost a relationship over it because I thought I still think this is what I wanted to do. And this was the sacrifice I was willing to make. And the person I was with at the time kind of didn't support that. And that's fine. Like I look back now and it's a life lesson. But yeah, if you want to get into professional sport, you have to sacrifice things, whether it's time, money. I wouldn't recommend sacrificing relationships, but I think that's a byproduct of if you're not with someone who's supportive or on the same page as you, then it's probably never going to work anyway. So that's kind of what I took out of it.
Yeah, you're definitely going to sacrifice a lot of weekends, aren't you? Like your Saturday, Sunday, I assume in the last sort of 4 or 5 years has been different to a lot of your mates around the same age.
So for the first probably 2 years, I was working 7 days in season. So I'd do clinic work. I'd work my 40 hours. So I'd work, say, let's say at Cronulla, we trained, it was Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. So I would work, 8 till 3, drive to Cronulla, work there till 8 o'clock, drive home, work 2 12-hour days on a Tuesday and a Friday. I'd do game day on a Saturday, and then I would have to do like clinic sport on a Sunday. And that was my choice. That wasn't forced upon me. I was like, cool, this is the way I want to work, and this is how I had to make things work. And that was the sacrifice. And so for probably 2 years, I was working apart, like outside of off season, like during sports season, I was working 6 or 7 days a week. And I did that for 2 years almost. And then once I kind of grew into the clinic, I was at a bit more of a senior position. I didn't work so much clinic sport, but when I had to cover, like if someone was away or sick or anything like that, you do a couple of weeks in a row where you'd be working 6 or 7 days again, and it's just life. That's the choice I made. But I wouldn't take it back. I learned a lot from it. You learn a lot about time management. But like I said before, it's all about risk versus reward. You make that sacrifice and you take that risk. And the reward I got on with it was, obviously I'm in the position I am now because of the work that I've put in, but also the education on what I learned out of those times, being in those environments and those systems. I took that back to my clinic. I learned how to effectively manage a grade 3 hamstring.
Yeah.
How to really take someone through an ACL protocol, or what are some contact progressions of getting someone back from an AC joint injury, and I took those lessons and I applied them to my clinic, and that made me a better clinician for the people in my community. And that's something that I'm still really passionate about. And that's kind of what I've tried to set up here in my clinic now. It's like, well, I worked in pro sport in some capacity for the last 5 or 6 years. well, I want to bring that to the people of my community and say, well, this is how athletes get treated. You can get treated the same.
Yeah, and you said it's really quite difficult to play sport yourself while you're doing these type of jobs in sport, and I can attest to that. It's very hard to play organized sport, and you kind of nearly have to choose, don't you? You know, are you going to play sport or are you going to work in sport? You can't really do both unless it's a hit and giggle during the week. Or if it's sport that's not organized, you know, something like golf or tennis or something you can play whenever you want. During the week. So it is tricky, very tricky.
Oh, definitely. Like, I would love nothing more than to go and my mates play Oz tag, and I would love nothing more than to go on a Tuesday night and play tag. Like, I would love that. I used to do it when I was at uni, my first year of practice. Like, I loved it. It was really enjoyable, but you have to make the choice and the sacrifice. It's like, well, I would love to play tag, but, you know, I've got to go to training. I've got to go and, like, you know, do these boys in the gym. I've got to do their rehab runs, or, you know, well, actually I have to stay back and work in the clinic so I can hit my numbers for that week. You know, you can't have your cake and eat it too, as they say. But like, I would love to get to a stage. And again, one of the benefits of running your own clinic, as you would know, is you can afford to move things around. And I'd love to get to a stage where I can go back and play tag. Or play golf. I always say I'd love to have the time to be shit at golf. That's if I could one thing in my career, if I could say, yep, I made it, I could say, yep, I've got the time to go and play golf and be really, really bad at it, and I wouldn't care, because it's just, you know, I guess I'm pretty competitive, so I'd want to be good at it. But yeah, that's a career. That's one of my career goals. I want to be able to play golf.
Mate, go for it. I'll give you a lesson.
Oh, mate, I'd love to. I'm left-handed too, so I can't borrow. Everyone's like, oh, I just can't borrow my clubs. I'm like, no, I'm left-handed. I can't do it. So,
funny story about that. So I grew up playing cricket, a lot of cricket, before I picked up a golf club, and I was a left-handed bat. And then my first ever hit of a golf ball was at a little junior clinic, and I was hitting it left-handed because obviously I played cricket left-handed. And then the pro came across and he's like, oh, try right-handed. So I hit it right-handed and it was fine. And he's like, yeah, go right-handed, because everyone has right-handed clubs and most courses is kind of set up for right-handers, etc. And now I play golf right-handed, but then I play cricket left-handed. Anyway.
Well, that's good to know. When I'm bad at golf, I can say, oh, this course was set up for a right-hander, not a left-hander.
Yeah. To a degree.
To a degree, yeah, definitely, yeah.
So in pro sport, obviously you're learning a lot from S&C coaches, and I think that's such an invaluable thing to have up your sleeve as a young physio, seeing the S&C guys do their thing. What have you learned, and is there any advice you'd give to young physios when dealing with a strength and conditioning coach if they are at the pro sport level?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to learn. I'll be honest, like my strength is not in the strength and conditioning side of rehab. Like, that's something that's my weakness, and I'm very open with that. I do it to a well enough degree that I can manage a program or any program. But, you know, when you're working in a professional club, it's not about, you know, boosting your own ego. It's like, okay, well, I've got to get this player back on the pitch as quickly as I can and as safely as I can. So you need to leverage the people around you. Just like a strength and conditioning coach will come to you and say, hey, this player has a niggle, can you check them out? So I really lent on my strength and conditioning coaches early in my career. I'm very fortunate at the moment to be working with a bunch of really, really good S&C coaches at the Tigers. The program that we're setting up there is really, really good, and I'm really excited for what they're building. But I think the best way for a young physio coming into it, let's say you've worked in the clinic, you've just recently got your first gig, you know, as a Harold Matts physio at an NRL club, and you're working with the S&C coach. I would really recommend being open and honest and saying, look, you know, this is where they're at. This is where they need to be. What do you think? And so I wouldn't say you would need to consult with them on your diagnoses or your early stage rehab, but when they're kind of transitioning back onto the field or back into the gym, it's like, cool, well, I think they should make these modifications to this exercise. What do you think? I'm really big on as well, you know, trying to keep the player who's in rehab kind of running almost alongside what the rest of the squad is doing. So for example, if the squad's on the field running and they can rehab run, then I would do their rehab run when the boys are on the field. And then when the guys are the squad's in the gym, make sure that they're in the gym. And if they've got, say, an ankle sprain, or they can still do their upper body loading, even if it's a bit modified, but they do it with the boys. You want to try and keep the player who's in rehab with the squad as much as you can, because you don't want to alienate them. You don't want to make them feel like, oh, I'm in rehab, I'm special, or like I'm not included in that. So I really feel you should really look at what the S&C's programs are. What's their plan for the week? Where can you throw them in? Where can you go, okay, well, Johnny's got a grade 2 ATFL. He's in a boot, but look, if we can get him doing some over or upper body stuff in a modified position, when are you doing that with the rest of the squad? Okay, we're doing that on, we're doing a Monday, Friday split or whatever it is, for example. Okay, cool. Well, then you modify your rehab program for the week to suit that. And that way the player feels like, hang on, bloody sensors. Then that way you feel like the player feels like, okay, I'm still included and I'm on a pathway to get back to the field. And then if they've got any kind of modifications to their running while they're on the field, well, then you link up with your S&C and you leverage off that. I think that's the best way as a new physio coming into pro sport, leaning upon people who are experts in their field and then gaining what you can. So I've learned a lot from, I work with a really good S&C coach. He's going to love me for shouting him out. Chris Bartels. I've worked with him for the last 3 years at the Tigers. I lean on him a lot in terms of periodizing players back into rehab in terms of back out of rehab into the field. So especially during the COVID break, I was doing a little bit of programming. And like I said, it's not a strength of mine, but I really challenged myself. I was like, no, I'm going to program for these guys to make sure that they're going to get the best out of their break when they were forced off. And he really helped me with that. And I learned a lot from that. And now I feel like I can go and do that as well. So you've just got to be honest with yourself and go, right, these are the things that I can do. These are the things that I need to improve on. Where can I leverage in that? That's the benefit of being in a pro sport setting. Okay, look, you don't obviously get the best money to start with, but you get this access to systems, people with experience, resources, all that kind of stuff. And you've got to leverage off that. That's the reason why I think that young physios who have an interest in sport going into a professional sports setting, that's the biggest thing you can get out of it, is leveraging off people around you and learning.
Yeah, for sure. And in terms of the strength and conditioning side of things at the pro level,
yeah,
I asked in the yes, no, or maybe questions, do you wish you had more influence over the S&C side of things? Because I assume at your clinic, you're obviously doing end stage rehab with clients at your clinic. So in the pro sport world, obviously there's kind of like a shuttling across into the S&C world once they're kind of finished quote unquote physio and that early stage rehab. Yeah. You said, I forget the answer. Was it yes?
I think I said, oh, it's a tough one.
It's a tough one.
No, I think I said I'm surrounded by good people, so no.
Yeah. So do you wish you had a little bit more influence on the S&C side of things? And do you love that late stage S&C?
I do. And I think I love it because it challenges me and because it's not my, like I said from the start, I'm going to be completely transparent. It's not my strength in terms of that really, like I can transition anyone back into pro, like into their sport. But when we're looking at programming and periodizing, when they're out of rehab, they're on the field, they've exited out of that, they're back into the squad normally. I think one thing that I really would love to have more of a say over would be more of just that, just kind of preventative exercise and kind of looking at that as part of the programming. But again, like I'm pretty lucky. I get that. Like I can say to my S&C now, hey, look, we're getting a high amount of Achilles load issues. Okay, we need to start incorporating these exercises into our prehab, or we're getting a few lower back guys early in preseason. Let's kind of tone down on this, or what do you think we should do with this? So I'm lucky that in the settings that I've worked at, I've been able to have open conversations because we do a lot of screening. I pick up things where kids are coming to me with like at the moment at the Tigers, we've got in the 20s, we've just had a couple of probably like 3 or 4 guys coming with low back pain, with running loads. And so our current S&C is Michael Wood. We spoke together. We go, yep, cool. This is how we're going to modify it. And I was lucky enough to have that. Some I've heard from other physios at other clubs or organizations that they haven't had that, where they can go to an S&C and go, right, this is what I want to try and implement. And it doesn't really work that way. So, I mean, it all depends on the people you surround yourself with. But I think, no, I'm pretty happy, I must say. I don't think I need to have more of an influence. I think my influence at the moment is pretty good.
But obviously seeing that strength and conditioning side of things at the end stage rehab in pro sport have obviously helped your clinic.
Oh, definitely.
definitely.
Definitely. 100%. Sorry. Yeah, no, 100%. Because like I said, not having that background in strength and conditioning, being able to see what guys like Woody and Chris Bartels and Chris Watts and all those guys do, I've then gone, okay, cool. That's a really good way that I can bring that back to my clinic. So I've learned a lot over the last, especially the last 3 years at Tigers, but I think the systems that we learned at the Sharks were really good as well. So like I've been pretty lucky. That's what we spoke about it before, leveraging the people you're around and taking what you can and learning and absorbing it. Like that's really important. And I think I've been lucky enough to be surrounded by great S&C coaches who have taught me a lot and have made me a better physio today.
For sure.
So yeah, definitely.
You've touched on money a couple of times. Now, if a young physio is starting out and they want to earn a little bit more money, do you recommend they get into sports physio?
No.
Why?
Look,
is that based on an hourly, like if you break down the hourly rate of a sports physio job, it's probably not as good as if you were just in a clinic earning commission?
Are we talking full-time sport or in like a part-time kind, or like a contract-based?
Let's break down both.
Yeah. Full-time sport, yes. Then that's a different story. I think you would be equally remunerated in a full-time role similar to the clinic. Obviously in clinic, if you're at a clinic with KPIs, you can obviously earn a little bit more money.
Yeah.
But with pro-time sport, I think you're appropriately paid for what your role is.
And just for the listeners out there, the young physios out there wanting to know how much these guys are making in pro sport. So if you did get a job as the head physio of the West Tigers, or you were in the second tier at, say, the AFL or something like that, how much money are these guys making if they're on a full-time salary? Guys and girls, obviously.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm on this side of the veil still. I haven't crossed over into that full-time position yet, so it's a bit of a mystery. But I would assume, and from what I've heard, you're looking at upwards of that kind of. I think a most full-time junior physio would be no less than say 70 or 80,000. That's kind of, from the conversations I've had with people, that's kind of where I think the money is in terms of an entry-level full-time position. I think as you go up the chain, obviously looking at head physio roles, you're looking at that kind of 6-figure sum. But again, I'm on still the part-time side of the veil, so I couldn't say with confidence exactly. But it'd have to be something that would equal what you would get in a clinic. Like there would be otherwise no one would do it.
And in terms of the part-time role, are you getting paid an hourly rate, or are you getting paid based on, a salary based on, a 6-month block or something like that?
Yeah. So generally it's a salary, especially for, look, I've worked in rugby league for the last 4 or 5 years now. So you're looking at kind of 6-month blocks, but it's kind of split into two. You've got your junior reps. So you've got your SG Ball, your Harold Matts programs, Tasha Gale. They run from kind of November to kind of May. And they're usually honorarium positions. So you'll say, right, you'll do this work. You're doing it for the benefit, or for an honorarium is basically a contract that is, you're doing something for a hobby and you're being remunerated just for that. And so they're quite low paying positions because you don't have to pay tax on them, and the club doesn't have to pay income tax on you. But then if you look at more those New South Wales Cup or Jersey Flag contracts, where you're looking at more that 9-month, they're usually a salary, and you get paid either a monthly retainer. And yeah, that's kind of the two differences in the part-time setting. Yeah, I mean, either of them, I wouldn't say you'd be running home and saying, "Oh, look at the money I'm on." But you're not doing it for that. Like, I don't think that if you're trying to go into pro sport and you're doing it for the money, you're doing it for the wrong reason.
100%. I completely
agree. You're doing it for the things we spoke about before. You're looking at learning systems. I think networking is a really important thing as well. Learning how to meet and link up with people who can, like we said before, leverage off and go, right, cool, this person is really good at this particular skill, whether it's a sports scientist or an S&C coach, or a high performance manager who's doing some really good stuff looking at systems. That's why you're doing it. Or you're learning how to, okay, right, I've got this player with a hamstring strain. They have to see me. There's no clinical side of things where this person, might not turn up to their appointment, or they're not going to pay this week, or I'm going to take a 2-week break, or I think I'm okay. That player is in your control, and you need to work out, okay, how do I rehab this person appropriately and get them back on the field in an appropriate time frame and a safe time frame? And you learn those things about then, okay, well, I take that back to my clinic and I go, right, well, next time a grade 2 hammy turns up, I know roughly the time frame of what it takes. And that's the benefit. It's a free definitely, learning tool. You know, you get to have this whole array of injuries that you're going to experience, and you get to rehab them. It's fun. You get to challenge yourself. Like I would say most clubs have a decent enough rehab gym or gym setup where you can play around with, you know, different exercises. You can prehab or preload them back into training, get them on the field, do some running drills, learn about loads. Like it's just, the possibilities of what you can learn in a pro sports setting are endless. It's only limited by what you want to do.
Yeah, and I completely agree. You got to do it for the right reasons. It's much the same as someone, you know, that wants to do medicine. You can't do medicine just because you want the money.
That's
you got to do it. You got to do it for the fact that you're passionate about it.
That's
it's
right.
It's the same with the pro sports stuff. And I will also add this: there's nothing wrong with trying the sport route and hating it.
Yep.
Or not enjoying it as much as you thought you would and going into something else. And I'll put my hand up and say I was that person. I thought that that's all I wanted to do was sports-based stuff. I did it. I didn't really like it that much. And I actually preferred private practice, clinic-based work. And I knew that business would definitely be another challenge I would like over going down that sports route.
Yeah.
Now,
and look, I question myself once every 6 weeks, I reckon still. Like it's, you know, you need to, I don't get me wrong. I love what I do. I'm blessed that I'm in a position at the Tigers where I can, you know, I've come to this position and now I get to mentor younger physios coming through and overseeing whole academy program. Like it's a really awesome position that I'm in. And I've got there, like I've got to look back and reflect. I got there from working my ass off. Like I worked my ass off for 3 or 4 years to get to the position. And I'm so, you know, not you know, tooting my own horn. I'm proud of what I've done. I'm proud that I've worked this hard and I've gotten here because I set myself a goal. I walked out of that level 1 sports physio course. I was at Macquarie Park. I think the main presenter was Tom Brysden. I think he works at Sports Lab. And I remember walking out and going, oh, this is what I want to do. I want to be professional sport. That's what I want to do. And I set myself a goal of 5 years. So in 5 years, I want to be in a professional sports setup. That's what I want to do. I want to be at, you know, the Rabbitohs, or I want to be at the Waratahs or something. And I got there within 2 or 3. Like, and that was my thing. And I progressed up that level. But there are times, especially on the drive home from Cronulla, I was like, why am I doing this? Like, is this worth it? But you've got to keep reminding yourself of what the end goal is. And if you get to the end and you go, look, this is not for me, fine. You've gained an experience. You've gained something out of it. As long as you can look back and go, okay, cool. Yeah, it was really hard driving and I didn't make any money, but I really learned from that one experience with that one player. And now the next time that rocks into the clinic, I know I can handle it. Or I really took out how to, you know, progress someone through contact, you know, getting them back onto the field. Or I really made a difference to my under 15s netball player with an ankle sprain on the weekend. That's the kicker. That's what gets me out of bed in the morning. It's like, I've learned so much in my professional sport career so far. Now I get to bring that to people who will really appreciate it in the clinic. And I think I think the other question was, do I see myself in professional sport forever? I don't think I do. I think I'll always end up back in the clinic, and much like you, and I've started that process of opening my own business and that challenge. But I, you know, to be honest, I see myself in pro sport for the next 10 years at least. I think. Let's see what happens in 12 months. But yeah, I definitely see myself continuing on that, but not forever.
Any regrets so far?
No, I won't. I wouldn't say regrets. Lessons, yes, definitely lessons. Lessons in patience. Lessons in like we all make mistakes in terms of rehab. We've all done it. But no regrets. I wouldn't say regrets.
That's great.
Yeah, no regrets.
Now, in terms of dipping your hand into a private practice while you're getting into pro sport, you said, yes, it's a good idea to do that. And I completely agree. I've seen it over the years. A fair few mates and colleagues of mine have worked in pro sport, and they worked in pro sport for a fair while in a full-time setting. And then once they were done in pro sport, And most of the time, the catalyst is family life. They might have kids, and it's becoming harder and harder to do the pro sports stuff and be away from family on a weekend over and over again. And the catalyst is often that, to go back into the private sector. Now, a lot of these guys and girls that I know that have done that, and then they've finally gone back into the private sector, they wished they had kept going in the private sector while they were working in pro sport, because they come out of pro sport and they've got nothing. They don't have a clinic. They don't have equity in a clinic. They're kind of starting from scratch again. Obviously, they've got all that experience. Is that why you've opened up the clinic on the side as well as doing the pro sports? So you've got that option to go back to the clinic?
I think to answer all of that, the main thing is security, because in pro sport, there's no guarantee. A lot of it, like I've only ever been on 1-year contracts. And look, as much as I love pro sport, sports clubs are not the best with communicating. And sometimes you have that period after a season where you don't know if you're going back. You don't know if management's changed or they've gone a different direction. And you have that anxiety at the end. October is the worst month of the year, because footy finishes, and then preseason starts at the start of November, but you haven't had a call from them. You assume that you've done a good job and going back, but sometimes you don't hear until 2 weeks before. The reason why I've always stayed in the clinic, or the choice for me to open my own clinic is one, security. But two, I've always wanted to open my own clinic. That's been a goal of mine for a long time. But now I'm setting this up over the next 1 to 2 years, and hopefully I can go to a stage where if a full-time role became available, I would have something set up that I could go and do that, still manage the clinic, still work, a couple of days a week. And also it still connects you to a community. Like, it's all well and good to go work in professional sport, but exactly like you said with your colleagues and friends, when you finish up, and like you said, most of the time it's due to family commitments or wanting to start a family, or, family life getting too much.
Yep.
You want to go and be successful in whatever you do. If you haven't been in the community for a while, like, sure, the draw card of saying, okay, you're the physio, you're the ex-physio of the Sea Eagles or the Brumbies or whatever. But if you haven't got clients that want to come see you, that's very difficult. So it would make a very difficult transition. So I've always said that I've wanted to maintain, you should always keep your foot in the door at pro sport, at clinic, when you're working in sport. But look, I've got colleagues that have made the jump and they're doing really well, and it doesn't seem to be an issue at the moment. They're not working in a clinic. They're getting all the CPD that they need at their current club. They're maintaining what their needs are. But again, everyone's different. But from my point of view, even if I went into a full-time sports role, I think I would still work in the clinic. I would still, in some capacity, at least half a day or a day a week or something. Or even if you just at this stage, if I'm running the clinic, I can come in and have a coffee with a patient, stand around and just be here. Like, you need to keep some presence in the community, and I think that's important.
Yeah, I think you're on the money there for sure, mate. When I was working at the Mater Clinic here in Sydney, my boss at the time was one of the Swans physios. And he used to come into the clinic a couple of days a week, see a couple of clients, obviously check in with all of us as well.
Yeah.
And then most of the time it was at the Swans. And it made a lot of sense, because now he's out of pro sport and he's not at the Swans anymore, but he's still got the clinic, and the clinic's been churning over really nicely for a long time. So I think it makes a lot of sense, and each to their own. Like, if you want to go down that pro sport path and jump 100% into it, do it. But no, when you come out, well, you might have to put some hard yards in again, to either build up a clinic or start in a new clinic in a working role under another brand.
Yeah, and look, and like, I mean, again, each their own. But if I was in pro sport for 5 or 10 years and I had to go work under someone else at a clinic, I don't think I would enjoy that.
Yeah, it'd be tricky.
It'd be very tricky, because and the benefit of pro sport as well, you've got a lot of, not freedom, but it's very, transient at times. Like, you might start one week you might be in at 6 a.m. every day, but you're home by 2 or 3. You go and pick up the kids, or you can, go home and have an early dinner with your partner or whatever, or go see mum and dad. But some weeks you're traveling, you're in, like, especially, I mean, the NRL is not too bad. I guess, you're traveling to, only up to Queensland, Melbourne, you go to New Zealand, maybe pre-COVID and all that. You look at the Super Rugby physios, like, sometimes they go on a 2-week tour to, South Africa. It's like, that's big.
Yeah.
That's a massive change. So you 1 year coming out, you want to have that freedom to go, well, I want to work the hours I want to work. If you've got 5 or 10 years of experience, people will come and see you at whatever time you're free.
I think the other thing is when you are out of pro sport and, you've got the title of being the something physio and you've got a sports masters, that's all well and good. And us physios know the difference and know that you've done the hard yards, but often the general public either don't know what that means or they don't care.
That's right.
They just want someone that they really know, like, and trust. So it's not as important once you're in the private sector, I think. And it's getting harder and harder as well with the amount of clinics out there, and also just the fact that people shop around, like the amount of exposures you need now for someone to actually purchase something from a business is close to 20 exposures, I think. And 20 years ago, it was like 2 or 3.
Yeah, I know.
So it's so different now, and people shop around, and, marketing's completely different. You've got all these social channels and Google, and
don't even get me started. Opening the business, I've had to learn all that, and
outsource.
Oh, yeah, I'm trying. We'll see how we go.
It's tricky, mate. A private practice is hard, and it takes time, and you learn things along the way, and it's not easy. But look, I'm happy with where I'm at, because I was obviously in the sort of pro sport world, and I was at the Swans Academy as the head physio there for a few years. And, I thought that maybe down the line I'd want to be the Swans physio, but I just didn't really like it. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to take the ballsy route now and jump back into private stuff, eventually open a clinic and just wash my hands clean. I probably am not going to do the sports stuff.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
It actually is more admirable that you make that decision and go, nah, this ain't for me. But you exit cleanly. There's nothing worse than, people kind of potentially hanging up their boots and going, nah, pro sports not for me mid-season or in a really bad way. It's like, well, you finish your commitment and then you go, right, this is not for me. And you make that change. And that's really admirable. Like I left Cronulla, because I wanted to go study my sports masters, and I was like, no, I'm going to have a year off sport. I really want to do my masters, and that'll be it. And then within kind of 2 months of doing that, I was like, I've made a horrible mistake. I want to get back in sport. This was a mistake. I shouldn't have done that. Anyway, ended up, luckily enough, the high performance manager at the time at Cronulla was Andrew Gray. He moved across to the Tigers. I got a call and said, hey, you're the 20s physio. You're going to start on Monday. We need a 20s. I was like, cool, sweet. Worked out really well.
Yeah.
It just got unlucky. And that's, again, if I didn't network and do a good job at Cronulla, I never would have got that position. And now I look back and I say to the guys who are in the Tigers Academy now, I know the position is not what you thought it would be in terms of this glorious, get all the kit and you're rocking in with a coffee and you're having a good time. It's like, no, you're working nights. It's hard work. You're working with 16-year-old kids who don't know how to move and have got injuries and they think they know what they're doing or whatever. But I promise you, there is a pathway here. And if you're willing to stick at it, you will get there. But again, there's no guarantee. There's never a guarantee in pro sport, even once you've made it. But you've got to make that decision. And there's no problem in saying halfway through, nah, this ain't for me. I don't want to do this anymore for whatever reason.
And luck only plays a certain part. I think that luck is often something that is underestimated. Sometimes you're in the right place at the right time, but at the same time, you've put in the hard yards to get to where you are. And I can attest to that, the amount of calls and emails and just literally just dropping heaps of lines to people over the years to try and get a job or even just a conversation over a coffee or something like that. And just putting yourself out there. That's the go for sure. The more, what's that Wayne Gretzky quote? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yeah. A patient of mine in the clinic once said, luck is where persistence meets opportunity.
Yeah.
And I live by that because I remember I was talking about anecdotes and I was treating him and I was saying, I finally got this role. And he goes, I said, I was so lucky. He goes, nah, mate. He goes, it's luck is where persistence meets opportunity. And that kind of came to a fruition. I was working at junior rugby. So I was doing country rugby juniors, traveling, driving down to Barrel after a weekend of sport or whatever, down to Bathurst or wherever. And I came back and they had a under 16s, like a tri tournament. So you had like Sydney City, Sydney Country, New South Wales Country, and the Sydney schools, like a GPS program. and it was run by the Waratahs, and the Waratahs conveners were there. And I just somehow mustered up the courage, and I walked up to the convener. I said, "Hi, my name's Michael. I'm a physio for New South Wales country. I want to work for the Waratahs. Here's my card." And he goes, "Yeah, cool, sweet." And then I didn't hear anything. And then 6 weeks later, he rang me. He's like, "Hey, do you remember me? You know, you come up to me at this tournament." I was like, "Yep." And he goes, "Oh, well, our under-16s physio just pulled out. Do you want to go to the Gold Coast in 3 weeks with the New South Wales Gen Blue program?" I was like, "Yes." Boss at the time didn't like it because 3 weeks notice for a week-long holiday, and I was fully booked. It wasn't good, but I just took the opportunity, and it just worked out. Like, it was just, I was persistent. I kept emailing people. I added every professional physio on LinkedIn and annoyed the hell out of them. "Hey, I want to come do an internship." And it just, that's how I got my start. And then from the Waratahs, I met the physio at the time was a guy called Barry Chan. He used to work at Cronulla, and he said, "Look, there's a job going. You should apply for it." And I did, and I got the job. And that's just, it's luck. It's luck, but I was persistent, and the opportunity arose, and I was there.
Persistence is the key for sure.
Yeah, and like, you're going to be annoying, and you're going to be annoying. You're going to feel annoying, and that's fine as long as you're polite, and you're not pestering all the time.
Yeah.
But like, I recently on LinkedIn advertised we had a role going in our academy with the Balmain Harramats team. And I had probably, I reckon, somewhere between 20 and 40 applicants. Half of those were physio students saying, "Hey, look, I know I'm not ready for this. I know that you've said you want a physio, but I'd love to just have an opportunity." And so I tried to ring as many of them as possible. I said, "Look, really appreciate you reaching out, but you know, this is obviously you need to be a physio for this, but good on you." That's how I started. Keep trying, keep going. And you know, there'll be a time where we're looking for someone, and I've kept all their resumes. They're in an arc. They're in a folder on my Dropbox. And when the time comes, I'll go through and I'll call all those guys again when we have another opportunity. Like, I was on the other end of that, and I really make an effort to go, right, I'm going to keep these guys, and I'm really going to dig through them when the time comes, because I remember what it was like. And I felt really shit when you never got an email back, or you never got the position. You know, you got that generic email that said, "Sorry, you haven't been successful. Like, I really want to try." And I must admit, I didn't get around to everyone, and I do apologize if they are listening at this. But yeah, it's one of those things where I know what it feels like. I know where they're coming from, and I really hope they stick at it, because it is a rewarding career. Like, I'm so lucky and grateful that I do what I do, and I feel my patients in the clinic are grateful. You know, I hope so. I mean, they keep coming back, so they must be great. Something right. But I feel that I've really done my best to transition what I've learned into my clinic role, and I really hope that young physios don't get disheartened by the fact that there's no money early on. I'll be honest, like, but we're not beating around the bush. It's very poor pay, and that's fine because you get so much out of it. You look at places like Athletes Authority, they run an internship, and they get so many applicants because what they do is good, and people want to learn. You take learning from that. People need to realize that pro sport is also the same. I think you can take, again, it's like anything, what you put in, you get out of it. So if you want to learn, and you want to learn systems and learn how to treat in a professional sports setting, you've got to put the time and effort in. And okay, you won't get remunerated in the start, but you will in the end. And even if you don't, you're going to be a better physio in the clinic.
Yeah.
People will come and see you.
Agreed.
That's how you make more money. And that's, yeah.
And even if you ask, the worst that they can say is either no or get back to me in 12 months time or something like that. So
yeah, that's right.
You may as well try. Like, it shouldn't be scary. It should be exciting, you know?
Yeah. And like, don't get me wrong. Like, over the years, I've applied for hundreds of other positions at other clubs, at other sports. You know, there was a stage there where I was looking to go over. I wanted to go to England and work in like the football league. Like, I would have loved that. My fiance now wouldn't agree with that. She'd say absolutely not, but that's okay. That's all different now. But you know, there's so many opportunities out there, and if you want to persist, and like, I remember faces and names of guys who have recently applied. If ever I was in another position, if something was to pop up, I'd go to them. I'd say, "Look, you know, guys were good. You know, it's all about networking." You know,
exactly. It's even like, I get a lot of students reaching out to me on Instagram or email, and they just ask for either just a chat, or they want to come in and spend some time in the clinic with me. And, you know, if they frame it really, really well and they seem open and honest, and I'm more than willing to have a chat to them. And I get back to everyone on Instagram typically within a few days. You know, like, I'm pretty good at getting back to people, and typically it's the people that clearly care and they want to learn, they're the ones that you can tell straight away just by how they respond, via email or text or whatever. They just seem keen, those kids that are keen. That's what you want to see.
Absolutely.
If they're keen, you're probably going to give them a job over someone that's got an awesome resume.
Yeah. I always say, like, I at my previous clinic, I was mentoring like young physios there. At one stage I was doing like I think I had four like physio mentors under me. And I said to them, I go, we can teach, you can learn anything. It's attitude that you can't teach.
Yeah.
If you've got the attitude and the passion, you can learn anything. It doesn't matter. And they come to me, I really, I had one guy, I stuffed up a calf strain. Like, how do I stuff that up? I go, that's fine. Don't worry about that. Did you learn from it? Yes. Cool. That's fine. We can work on that. But you've got the attitude and you care. That's all I care about. If you're a good person, people will like you. It's not, if you're a good person, you'll be a good physio.
And
if
also,
you care about your patients, you'll be a good physio.
And a happy physio is a good physio. I think one of new grads reached out to me asking whether he should play sport. And I said, do you want to play sport and does it make you happy? Yes, it does. Well, play sport. You don't have to get into sport. If you're going to be happier doing your clinic work, 8 till 5 or whatever, 5 days a week, and have your weekends to yourself and be able to go to training during the week, and you're happier doing that, do that. You don't have to go into pro sport. Remember, it's your life. You can do whatever the hell you want with it. And if you jump into pro sport, as you've said, you're going to have to make a lot of sacrifices. And one of those sacrifices might be you can't play as much organized sport. So at the end of the day, no one's forcing you to do anything, and you've got to make your decisions based on whether you're going to be happy and whether you're going to be fulfilled in your practice as a physio.
Absolutely. And I think you've nailed it on the head there. If you're not happy, you're not going to be a good physio. And that's the biggest thing. So, like, I was playing rugby in my first year or two, and then I made this decision. I said, and I literally said it to myself, I have more of a passion of being a sports physio than I do for playing sport. And that was the moment I was like, I'm not playing sport anymore. As much as I'd love to go back and play footy and play rugby and like I said, social tag on the Tuesday night is my goal. Like, I'd love to be able to get to do that, but I can't. And that's the choice that I've made, and that's fine. I can live with that. But you've got to be happy at the end of the day. And if you're not going to be happy, there's no point in doing it. Like, don't get into sport. Like, that's fine.
Yeah.
Be a great community physio, do well for your patients, go down to your local netball comp, be a great physio for them on the weekend, play your sport on a Sunday or on a Wednesday night, and you'll be successful. You don't have to be professional sport. And and going back to, students and stuff, I find they get so stressed about, I've got to make it straight away. Don't stress. Dude, just the first 12 months, I would not recommend anyone in their new grad year doing sport. I reckon the first 12 months, you should just be, if that's your passion and you want to do it and you can lucky enough to get a position, go for it. But I reckon your new grad year, just focus on working in the clinic, honing your skills, getting better, getting confident, and then looking at moving on.
But also, if you did that during the week, then you get the weekend to relax and to tune out, because it's very hard in your first year. The first 6 months is really tough if you're at a clinic or something like that. On top of that, if you're doing the sport, that's just a lot of stimulus.
100%. Like, your first, I think we say, in new grad year, it's that 6 month you break down. Like, you break up 6 months, and if you've got a good community, a good clinic around you with good support and a good mentor, whether in your clinic or if you're talking to someone else to talk you through that, you'll get through. That's fine. But you need to make sure that you've got a really good work-life balance before you hit pro sport. You'll notice a lot of the guys in sport will either be, especially the younger age, they'll either be single, which is like, this is not, they'll either be single or they'll be in a really committed relationship where their partner is really supportive and they understand, and that's it. You can't have it both ways. Like, a lot of the younger guys probably don't have kids. You'll find that the older guys are either, married or single. And then once they kind of get into pro sport, they'll have a look at having kids and stuff like that. I find, because they're more settled and they're more secure at that at that higher level. But like, you've just got to have the support networks around you. If you're living at home, I was really lucky. My parents are the best people in the world. Like, when I was doing the Cronulla nights, mum would cook me dinner, and like, I was 24. I know I should be doing my own stuff, but I was living at home. She goes, "Nope, you're working, 13-hour days, 14-hour days. Dinner's on the table for you. like all that stuff. I was really lucky. I didn't have to come home and cook. Like, I know that sounds silly. Like, I mean,
no. I completely agree. Mums are great, mate.
Oh, mate, I was so lucky. And my dad was the same. Dad really helped me out.
Yeah.
He would be like, "Yep, cool. I need to use the ute for the weekend. I've got to go to, we had to go to Canberra. Yep, cool. Here you go. Take the key. Take the car. That's fine." Like, I was lucky, and I know not everyone is as lucky as that. But if you've got people around you that support you, who can help you, mate, you can do anything. That's not just in pro sport. That's in life. So yeah. That's
agreed. Very good advice, mate. And last question before we finish things up.
Yeah.
Is a master's 100% necessary if you want to get into pro sport? And that's a sports master's or a musculoskeletal master's?
At the moment, I would say no. But the way I'm seeing things trending, I've got the fear that it will be. I don't think in terms of a part-time or a contract setting, definitely not. But I get the feeling it's trending towards, I think as we get more into the full-time sports settings and as they become more desirable, I think unfortunately it will be. And I hope it doesn't go that way. But I feel like it will. I think because sports masters are now very easy to get into after a couple of years, I feel like more and more people will do it, and people will do it for the sake of just having it, not for the right reasons.
Yeah.
Like we said before, I don't recommend anyone, because I think at La Trobe you had to have practice for 2 years anyway.
Yeah, I think the minimum's 2 years, because I got into it and decided not to do it, and decided that I didn't want to have the extra stress of that combined with opening a clinic. Like I already had so much stuff going on. And the thing is, I realized I didn't want to go down the pro sport route. So I didn't really think I necessarily needed it, especially the fact that I'm very good at consistently, upskilling and everything. I didn't really think that I needed that sort of directed learning via university rather than just self-directed, and also just pushing myself out there as much as possible, doing podcasts, all that sort of stuff.
No, look, I did last year. I did my first unit there. I was just doing 1 unit a semester, a year, sorry. Oh, my semesters, it goes for a year at La Trobe. I deferred this year. I got halfway through and I said, no, I can't do this with my load. And next year, look, I'll be honest, I'll probably defer again. I'm opening a business. I'm still working in pro sport. I want to finish it. I really do, because I want to challenge myself, but I just don't know if I can. Like, we're being open and honest here. But I definitely will go back to it, I think, when the time is right. But I don't think it's as important as it is to become a great young physio. Like, I think if you can just get your hands dirty, see as many patients as you can, upskill where appropriate. I mean, I waited 5 years, and I feel like I only really appreciate what I learned now. And I feel guys are so concerned about getting as many little letters next to their name. Like, don't stress. Just be a good person, be a good physio, learn and on like hands on people. Get your hands on patients, get them in the gym, learn how to appropriately rehab someone. And then when you feel like you need to do it, and you can do it financially and time-wise, and really get the most out of it, you will get the most out of it, and then it will become useful. Yes. But I hope that professional sport doesn't go down that route where you need one. But yeah.
And if you're working just in private practice, would you even bother doing a sports masters?
Look, I think you can definitely take a lot out of it. Don't get me wrong. Like, I actually found the research unit the most rewarding.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Look, I'll be honest, I did not appreciate research at university. I think it was one of those, in my undergrad, I think it was one of those courses where, like, everyone just we all had the same article we had to appraise, and we all just did it together, and whatever.
And I think they also do it really late in the uni degree. And I think everyone's just over it, and they just want to get out and start doing they want to go out into clinic work, or they want to go out and do their placements to finish the degree. I think they just tack it on at the end,
Yeah. And like at ACU, we had 1 unit dedicated to like exercise and strength prescription, 1 unit in the whole thing. But don't get me wrong, our Musk base at ACU was unreal. I'm so grateful that I went to ACU. But if they just, you're right, unis just tack on little things. And I remember walking out of the stats exam going, I'm going to regret this one day. Like, I'm going to regret not putting effort into this. And it got to the first 2 weeks of doing the stats and research unit at La Trobe, and I was like, shit, here it is. This is karma. But look, I got through it, and I was really grateful. I did a lot of work on pediatric ACL stuff. I did a bit of stuff on that, and I really enjoyed it. And now learning how to appraise and research articles, like, it makes such a difference. It's such a difference. So if anyone at uni is listening to this, definitely pay attention in your research unit, because it will help you. It'll help you sift through the bullshit online.
Agreed. And any final thoughts or advice for some of the students, new grads out there?
Speak up, talk to people, get in touch. I think there's a lot of anxiety around trying to get into a position that you're going to be grateful for, that you want. Talk to people. If you follow, like, you or someone else, like a guy like Justin Richardson's really good. The data, the stuff that he puts out. If you really find that you want to learn, reach out, talk to people, get an idea of what you want. Just talk to 30 different physios if you can. Generally, we're pretty nice blokes. I would say generally we're pretty good. We're pretty good people. We're willing to have a chat, willing to have a coffee and learn and teach and pass on what we've learned, anecdotally, all from like a specific physio experience. So I reckon the best thing is just speak up, talk to people, and really work out what you want to do. Whether that's by trying something and sticking to it and giving it a go, or by talking and all that kind of stuff. But I wouldn't stress. I don't think it's worth getting stressed over and going, I really want to get into pro sport. I've got to get into an academy position in my first 2 or 3 years. Don't worry. Just focus. If you're a new grad, focus on being a good person and a good physio for your patients. You will get there. But yeah, I'm always happy to chat to people. I really enjoy teaching. I would love to go and do something like in an educational component down the track sometime, because I feel like I really get a kick out of teaching and helping young physios, reach their goals and stuff. And yeah, that's my advice.
Sage advice, and you've nailed the podcast, mate. Well done. This was your first ever podcast, so congrats. You finished it.
Thanks, mate. I'm looking forward to more. Hopefully, this is a good audition. No, just joking. I really enjoyed it, mate. It was really good. Thank you very much.
No worries, my pleasure. Thanks for coming on. And where can all the listeners find you? Instagram, website, all that jazz?
Yep. So I've got my personal physio page is Mike the Physio. I think it's Mike the Physio _. And then my clinic page is at EE Physio. And all my website, Facebook, all that's on there. But come have a chat, come in, have a coffee. It'd be good.
Great work. And this podcast is live on Apple Podcasts, Google, Amazon, Spotify, all other podcast channels, I think. I'm not 100% sure, but they're all on those. Any final thoughts, Michael?
Yes, you said it was ice cream. It's gelato. Sorry, Messina gelato.
Yeah, but don't they do ice cream?
No, it's all gelato, mate.
Oh, is it? Yeah, right. Oh, I was wrong.
That's been bugging me. No, I'm just joking. It's all good. I used to get it all the time.
To be honest, I'm going to throw it out there, and this is probably going to be one of the most controversial things I've ever said on the podcast. I think Messina's overrated.
Oh, stop it. Stop it.
That's my namesake, mate. I reckon it's overrated.
Everyone, like, literally, as soon as you go to the counter and you say, Messina, I like the ice cream. It's like, I used to go, it's my uncle. It's not. I have no relation, but it's a good little icebreaker, I think. But no, it is pretty good. It is pretty good.
If it was your uncle, you'd have a decent inheritance.
Oh, mate, it'd be nice. Don't worry about the inheritance, just about the ice, the gelato. That's all I care about.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, mate. We'll have to do it again soon. And as usual, stay strong.